Go?
Go.
Okay. Some very important notes on this, on exclusivism before I move on. Be very suspicious of any group that claims to be better than all the others. A religious group may say that other groups following the same religion are okay, but they are the ones who have a better grasp of the truth and they are superior to the rest. This is often just a subtle version of exclusivism. For instance, Mormons will tell you that that they are the supreme church and that they don't mind the other churches, but you'll just go to a lesser heaven than the faithful Mormons. But that's an example of this. And another important note is that this is one of the practices that cults are often very deceptive about. For example, first off, they may give you the impression that they think you are a true Christian, Buddhist, or Muslim, and it's not until later that their true position is revealed. An example is the third one, in which case that I was a part of for a while, in which case, and the pastor made it sound like he thought I was so godly and all that, but then he basically said that I was truly saved when I temporarily believed his non-Trinitarian doctrine. And when I left, he said that I was leaving and I was damned to hell. There you go. Key point on this one is any group which says you must belong to their organization to be saved is almost certainly a cult. Now, I want to make a note on that one. A lot of people might argue that Christianity as a whole is a cult because they say you have to be one of them to be saved, but it's not about being. But the difference between us and the cult is it's not necessarily about being a Christian, so to speak. It's about believing on Christ. You see, that's the main thing here. If there were other religious groups that believed the same things about Jesus that we did, and God and the Bible and all that, we would accept them with open arms, just as we would mainstream Christianity, provided they don't show themselves to be a cult. But these cults are entirely different. And now, fear and intimidation is another mind control technique. Cult leadership is feared. To disagree with leadership is the same as disagreeing with God. The cult leaders will claim to have direct authority from God to control almost all aspects of your life. If the cult is not a religious group, then questioning the leaders or program will still be seen as a sign of rebellion and stupidity. What? Okay. And an example I can give is when in that second group when that I alluded to earlier, where they said anything as simple common sense, where turning from the lane you were supposed to be in and all that, or your medicine, like most people should know that you don't take other people's prescribed medicine, and that's just common sense, and a doctor can tell you that. But if a pastor says it, it's considered divine instruction. Yeah, they really did do that. And or like at the third one, when I asked a question of the leader, basically I was asking him about his little interpretation of Genesis 1 and 2 when he was trying to make it where it was where he was trying to claim it was non-Trinitarian. he was basically trying to say that when God said, let us do this and let us do that he was talking to the angels. And I basically posed the question that couldn't it be said then that if that's true, that the angels and God both created the world instead of God alone? And he said that no, it's like the workers don't claim credit for what their boss originated, and it was the same thing here. But when you look and say God created, let us create man in our own image, if you used his interpretation, you'd have to rightly argue that we were created in the image of both God and angels, but we weren't. We were created in the image of God alone. The Bible is very clear on that. But and he often resorted to ad hominem attacks like, I've been studying the Bible longer than you've been alive, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, more on that later. So they'll use guilt, character assassination, and breaking sessions. This is their fear and intimidation tactics. Guilt will be used to control you. Maybe the reason you're not making money is because you're not with the program. Maybe the reason you're not able to convert new recruits is because your heart is prideful and full of sin. It can never be that the program isn't working or those new recruits have valid reasons for not joining. Oh no, it's always your fault. You are always wrong, and so you must try harder. You will also be made to feel very guilty for disobeying any, and I mean any, of the cult's written or unwritten rules, even if they're things that are common sense that you don't need, that any dummy off the street should know, like don't take other people's prescribed medications. Character assassination is used to help create the guilt in you. Character assassination is a type of false reasoning used by people and groups who have no real arguments. The technical name for character assassination is the ad hominem fallacy. This is how it works. Imagine, if you will, a conversation between two men, Ford and Arthur. 1 + 1 = 3, says Ford. No, I don't think so. You see, when I have one thing and I have another thing, then I have two things, not three, replies Arthur. I see your point, but what you must realize is that 1 + 1, when calculated in relation to this complex number domain, which I just invented, and then squared by the sum of the ninth tangent in the sequence of the Fibonacci series, results in 3, stated Ford triumphantly. Okay, Ford is wrong, but that is not the point. The point is that Ford tried to answer Arthur's reasoning with more reasoning of his own. This is the healthy way people and groups debate subjects. Now let's see what would have happened if Ford had used character assassination. Arthur, I have been a mathematician longer than you. How dare you disagree with me? You are obviously a very smug and prideful person. I think you are disagreeing with me because you are jealous of me. And to be honest with you, Arthur, your rebellion has really hurt me and a lot of other people too, stated Ford, his face intimidatingly close to Arthur's. You see, Ford didn't answer Arthur's argument. Instead, he attacked his character. If you are not aware of how character assassination works, then it is a powerful way to exert control over you. And I can give an example from the third one when I left and told him that I disagreed with him about the idea that babies would be that God would send an innocent baby to hell. He said, I've been studying the Bible longer than you've been alive. I'm getting tired of your stubborn and, what did he say? I get tired of your stubborn and overly opinionated ways. It's made me uncomfortable and it's made a lot of other people uncomfortable too. You see how that works? In fact, next week or so when we resume in fact, next week or so, I'm going to read the email out loud to you so that you can get an example of this, of how this works. And then there are breaking sessions. Breaking sessions are when 1, 2, or more cult members and leaders attack the character of another person, sometimes for hours on end. Some cults will not stop these sessions until their victim is crying uncontrollably. An example of this is at that Holiness Pentecostal, which was the second one I went to, and that I stayed for a while because I thought I could just agree to disagree, and then decided enough was enough. When they were legalistic about everything, there was this one lady that was behind on her Bible studies because she had grandchildren she has to take care of, because her son and daughter-in-law were often in prison for drugs, among other things. And so she was often taking care of those grandchildren. She had health problems, and she was just very busy, and so she'd get behind. Well, other people were like, no excuse, God is strengthening your weakness, blah, blah, blah. And they were, in essence, making her feel guilty. And then, of course, I was the only one trying to make her feel better, and I was like, I don't think God understands, Sister Marlene. I don't think that He is going to make a big deal of it just because you're behind on Bible studies. He understands. And you want to know what her response was? Sister Alicia, I can't tell God that, because if I use that as an excuse, He'll not only send me to hell, but He'll curse my grandchildren. And I tried to tell her, I don't think God works like that. And she said, no, the first commandment is thou shalt have no other gods before me. And then at that point, I knew there was no reasoning with her. And they do that, and they do that all the time. They also did that with me once. Like one time I went to one of their houses for New Year's, and it was really, really cold. Like, it was like in the 20s or 30s. So I did what any sensible person would do. I put on a shirt, jeans, shoes, a sweatshirt, and coat. Well, duh, you're thinking, why not? Well, let me tell you the significance of that. They claim, based off a certain scripture in Deuteronomy, where it says that men should not wear female clothes and vice versa, they take that to mean that every female should always wear a dress, no matter how cold or warm it is. And so when I showed up there in jeans and a shirt, they got all pissy with me, and I said, it's cold outside, of course I'm wearing this. And they said, and they basically told me that, what, you don't think the God who created everything can keep your legs warm? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, do you know what would have happened if I left the house with a dress on? It would have been an argument with my parents. And they said, well, you should learn to, and I don't want an argument with my parents. And they said, your parents sound like a couple of godless heathens. And, you know, they are unsaved, but it's not based off that. They don't believe that Christ is the only way, but it has nothing to do with with what clothes you wear. But they were saying they were godless heathens just because they would have loved me enough to not let me go out in that cold weather with a dress. And so then she talked more about how she has relatives that disrespect her all the time by wearing jeans to her house. And finally I said I was sorry for disrespecting her house. And at the time I kind of meant it, but later I was like, this is ridiculous. It's cold outside. Of course I'm going to wear jeans. Of course I'm going to wear a sweatshirt. I'm not stupid. But anyways, that's another example of how that works. And they'd be like, these are the reasons why you need to be in church, blah, 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 blah. And they mean their church, of course. So now, key points. Character assassination is a sure sign of a cult. And another one is cult members are usually very fearful of disobeying or disagreeing in any way with their leadership. Healthy organizations, however, are not threatened by openly debating issues. Like at number 3 where I went to, I could tell that a lot of people looked uncomfortable when I questioned their leader or asked him, can you tell me what verse that's in, or where did you get this information from? Like one time he said something about the Catholic Church, and because I have grandparents who are Catholic, I asked him where he got his information from, and he got all defensive with me. And one person in there looked uncomfortable, but I could tell it was more because, and looking back, I could tell it was more because he was afraid this leader would go off on me, because he and I had a pretty good relationship. And ironically, he and I still talk sometimes, but I should tell you that's actually very rare. Most of the time when you leave a cult, nobody will talk to you from there. Like these friends I had at the Holiness Pentecostal Church, when I left for good, they didn't call me or anything. And when I did go over to their houses, it was to get me to go back. And now the next one. This one's very, very important. I think it went off. Did I go 2 minutes over?
That's 2 minutes.
Oh. Good. And then this next one is love bombing and relationship control. Cults know that if they can control your relationships, then they can control you. Whether we like it or not, we are all profoundly affected by those around us. When you first go to a cult, they will practice what's called love bombing, where they arrange instant friends for you. It will seem wonderful. How could such a loving group be wrong? But you soon learn that if you ever disagree with them or ever leave the cult, then you will lose all your new friends. This unspoken threat influences your actions in the cult. Things that normally would have made you complain will pass by silently because you don't want to be ostracized. Like in an unhealthy relationship, love is turned on and off to control. Cults also try to cut you off from your friends and family because they hate others being able to influence you. Well, some are more subtle about it than others. I just want to say that out loud. Some will tell you to stay in contact, but it's very rare. Some will be subtle and some will be direct. A mind control cult will seek to maneuver your life so as to maximize your contact with cult members and minimize your contact with people outside the group, especially those who oppose your involvement. 2 key points here. Beware of instant friends. Remember, true friendship develops over time. And also, beware of a group that tells you who you can and cannot see. What? Why are you showing me that? We got a timer right here.
I don't go over.
I'm watching. I'm sorry. My filmer's trying to make sure we don't go over, which is probably a good thing, but you know, it's like I'm watching. Anyways, I'll go over the more mind control techniques in the next video.